Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everyone. Welcome for another week with Barry and me.
Hi, Del.
Hi. So this week we're going to be talking about being versus doing. And
Cool.
this has been on my mind a lot. Well, mostly because, and I think you've probably come across this too, Barry, in your coaching. Yours is, I get a lot of people talking about, I haven't found my purpose, or, you know, they have this expectation that they should be something in the world, that they should have achieved something on the outside. And this has been up for me this week, very much so, because I lost a very good friend last weekend, and she truly was one of the happiest people I've ever met in my life. And she brought so much joy to everybody she met just by being herself. She
Right.
just was effervescent, loved life, loved people, loved animals. And since her passing a week ago, I'm just seeing how many people are coming together and commenting on what a beautiful light she was and how many lives she touched. And she was a trainer and she was a nutritionist. She wasn't famous. She wasn't out there doing, what we would consider huge things in the world. But her impact, the impact she had on everybody she met is really has taken my breath away. I mean, I knew it had that impact on me, but just seeing how many other people were impacted that way is just being so beautiful and such a testament to a wonderful life, well lived. I mean, tragically, she was young and it was sudden, and it was things just mind blowing to me that somebody so healthy and so fit could die so quickly from influenza that turned into pneumonia, but it did. But anyway, but the subject today is about being versus doing. I think so many of us reach the end of our lives, and the summing of it up will be, how did we show up, not what did we do during that time. So
Yeah.
your thoughts on that, Barry?
Uh, Interesting, because a friend of mine passed away after escaping the original prognosis of cancer for 3 years longer than she was supposed to have lived. She passed away about a month and a half ago. They did the memorial last week. I couldn't get out to San Diego to be there for it, but I heard about it. And she was a woman who, in a similar way, had a big impact. She ran some big events. She collected a lot of people. She was always on the vanguard of health and everything else because of what she was going through with cancer. The research she did, the people she brought together internationally was amazing. So she did deliver massive gifts. And so in speaking to the being versus doing piece, the joke I've heard so many times about, we're human beings, not human doings, but we forget that. And so we are often driven by accomplishment being the result. Personally, I've learned this lesson many times over, so I'm still learning it, about beingness being more important. First of all, because it's easier to do, frankly, but secondly, because that's the real gift we bring. And the ability, like you're saying with your friend who was the trainer, her gift was to connect to people, to give them their health back in a way. And so she wasn't there achieving, like, I've got 30,000 clients change. That's not what her focus was.
Mm-hmm.
Her focus sounds like it was about, is this person having a better relationship with themselves than they did before I worked with them? That's a gift. And that's what the beingness is about for me. It's about the living a way that uplifts the people around you.
Yeah.
Rather
Yeah.
than saying, I've got this goal, I've won it, I've achieved the goal, I've got these awards, that's just side effects.
Exactly. And again, it's that it wasn't even just with her clients. It was just you would just meet her. I have friends that I introduced to her, and they were like, I mean, they remember her just because of the lightness she brought into life. Her joy was infectious. Her living in the moment, finding, literally finding joy in everything, anything. I mean, I have so many memories of crazy funny things that we did together. There was once there was a fundraiser actually where they were letting out butterflies, and as monarch butterflies, to sort of release them into the air, and
Yeah.
for this fundraiser. And Mary Lee was running around the ground collecting all the ones that wings weren't working properly, and gathering them before somebody trod on them. And just her just her focus in life and what she focused in. And I've always had this funny saying, and I may have mentioned this before, but it's, I sometimes think even a role such as a checkout person at a supermarket, a busy supermarket, you're the checkout person. And, you know, depending on how you show up in life, your energy, how you interact with people, you can touch 300 people a day just by who
Yeah.
passes in front of your line, and make their day better, by just your energy. And sometimes I think, gosh, that is so underestimated. That role is so underestimated. But
Yeah.
somebody that is, and again, coming back from the UK, there was a TSA guy in London, and he was so funny. And it was, I think our flight was at 7 in the morning, and I was like, oh, you're in a good mood today for 7 o'clock in the morning. And he was like, I'm like this every day. I get up making sure that I'm going to have the best day ever, and I'm going to make sure everybody I come in contact is going to have a good day too. And we had the best conversation. I was like, wow, I will never forget you.
Right.
And it's true. I mean, I haven't. It's like, 2 months later, I'm still thinking of this happy TSA guy that wanted to touch people's lives in a very positive way. So, yeah, that's the being. It's the being. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to have, you don't have to have letters after your name. You don't have to have plaques on buildings. You can just how you show up minute to minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the thing that I love is the people that seem to be the most impactful that seem to also be the most effortless.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's a clue, by the way.
Yeah.
There are certain things people do that are purpose driven, that are driven from a place of beingness. They can be very effortful, can be very impactful. If they can like feed the homeless or change laws in certain states or whatever it is they do, that can require a lot of effort. But it's the other ones where their beingness shines through, where the grace and the ease of being themselves is all that it takes for them to be that impactful on the checkout line or TSA or wherever it is. That for me is really honoring and owning who we are.
Yeah.
Frankly, we always do that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's true. And it's not, I mean, it's in no way to diminish, you know, the, the people that are doing wonderful things in the world and have achieved so much. It's not about that. And I think it is what you're pointing to is we can still do those things, but the emphasis is first and foremost on how you show up when you do those things. The
Yeah,
energy, the energy that is beneath those actions that you're doing, because sometimes a lot of people do things for, I mean, as we know, a lot of my work is with people that are in narcissistic relationships, and we talk a lot about the covert narcissist, the one that sort of appears to be very humble and very, sort of quiet and unassuming. It's not that big flashy narcissist we think about with the power and the money and the position and the flashy cars and things like that. They're
right.
but they're the covert narcissists that want the recognition. I'm so special. So the energy from what they're doing some wonderful things and have wonderful charities and things like that. But the energy is to, it's all about me. How good do I look? Does everybody recognize what I've done here for other people?
Yep.
And this again, I'm not putting that down, because we need that. We need the doers in the world. We need the people that get things done. And often when I have conversations about politics with friends that are like, oh, all politicians, and I think, well, would you do that job? It's like, unless you're prepared to do the job yourself, I think you should be a little bit restrained in how vehemently you feel about both parties. It's I wouldn't want to be a politician. I mean, but not all of them are corrupt and not all of them are doing bad things. I think there's some politicians that are doing incredible things in the world.
Right. At the same time, though, there are also a lot of politicians, speaking in that genre, who refrain from speaking up and stepping up into the truth.
Hmm.
They along with the flow. which isn't necessarily living in a place that is really soul and being driven. It's more comfort and ease, and frankly, avoidance of being noticed.
Yeah.
Some people. So there's a spectrum of flavors in that persona. That's the other part too, is that there are individuals over history who have been that bold to step out and show their truth and shine their light, and have been shut down for it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Gandhi was one of those. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of those. There's so many different uh, figureheads in a way. People who've done big things that were called to do something bigger that was going to put them in danger. So the challenge of this work is, yes, it can be easy to be yourself and less effort doing, but sometimes you may be called to do things that are outside of your comfort zone, and that's okay as long as you know it's the truth.
Yeah. And you know, the other thing that was occurring to me too, when I got a divorce, I remember going into therapy going, why didn't I stay at school? Why didn't I become a lawyer? Why didn't I this? Why didn't I that? Because I wanted security. I wanted that sort of, going back into the workforce after being a stay-at-home mother, at 50 was quite challenging. And I'd
Oh
had
yeah,
many different careers. I'd been a costume designer, I'd been a painter, an artist, I'd been a stylist, I'd been a Pilates teacher, I'd been a lot of things. And I remember my therapist saying to me at the time, he said, "Do you know how many people come in here at your age and think, why didn't I live? Why did I just know from the age of 15 I was going to be a doctor and that's all I ever was and did, and now I'm like hitting that midlife crisis going, God, I haven't lived another life." And again, we can do that. We can fall into these traps of believing that we have to have a purpose, or um, I was actually having this conversation with somebody yesterday about her 18-year-old son, and it was like, he doesn't know what he wants to do yet. And I'm thinking, he's 18, for God's sake, let him
right.
let him, let him have a few different careers, let him try a few different things. It's not about finding the one thing and then sticking to it, and becoming really an expert or proficient in that one area. It's about life. It's about experience. It's about the being, as we say.
Well, having had multiple careers before I got to this one, and really owning my gifts now because I know better now, but it took me a while to get here. I would never feel like it's okay to put pressure on some young kid to get it earlier. Now, there may be encouragement that I would offer them saying, you can find what you want to do and trust it and be okay with it. But it took me a while to get there, so I'm not going to judge somebody else for not doing it an easy way than I did. The thing that's also part of this is that we, in some ways, I feel like we're allowed to explore and to make mistakes. Part of the journey is to find out what doesn't work before we find out what does work. It's part of this joy of being human. So it's okay to be um, an experimenter in life and learn what's really working.
Yeah, yeah, I like that too. Exactly, it really is. It's. I mean, I often find people say, "I don't know what I want," and I'm like, "Tell me what you don't want," and
Yeah,
then always look to the opposite of that. That's how you'll find out what you want. But again, that pressure to find your purpose, and it be just this one thing, as opposed to maybe your purpose is just to live a really, interesting, great, eclectic life, and to, as I say, touch people in different ways. But again, I mean, we were talking about this earlier, about it's, the relationship you have with yourself, these pressures we put on ourselves, and sometimes on our partners too.
yeah,
That they have to stay one course. I mean, that's one thing I will say about my ex-husband. He was very good at changing courses. That book, Who Moved My Cheese? Well, when he
yes.
realized his cheese was moved, he moved. He was a very bold character, and he had this wonderful capacity to say, "Oh, this is not working anymore. Let me try this," and try a completely different career and do very, very well in it. So, yeah, I think it's that, it's the whole life. It's how you experience the whole thing. Not, as I say, when you get to that deathbed, it's not going to be like, oh my God, thank God I found my purpose and I did it for 50, 60 years and now I can die happily.
It's about. I mean, the quote, the meme. I forget who the quote came from. Is about It's like there's the day you're born, and then there's the day you realize why you were born. That's a Mark Twain quote, I think. I'm paraphrasing, but the idea being it's like it really is the dash between. Just actually, when you're born and when you die, that's where the action is. It's also where the opportunity is. So while we're alive, while we're here, what do we want to make a difference in? What do we want to be about? What do we want to thrive at? What do we want to be happy about?
Mhm.
If we ask ourselves directional questions, positive directional questions versus negative ones, and we ask ourselves what lights us up, what do we feel joyful, what do we feel most passionate about, and then listen to the answers that we get back.
Mhm.
Really, the key to move this whole thing forward is to really have a sense of relationship with ourselves that we can get good answers and then take steps and take action towards what we're guided toward. Because
Mhm.
that works.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's basically it's getting clear on what your values are, what's important to you, what do you enjoy, what type of people do you like spending time with? Are you an introvert? Do you like spending a lot more time alone, or are you somebody that needs the energy of being in a group of other people? Does that feed you? So it really is. It's about your relationship with yourself, knowing what it is that matters to you, and then finding opportunities or being in alignment with those things that I mean, like you and I mean, I love coaching, but I also love, I love having clients, but I also love how I show up as a coach within my family or within my, even as a parent, or, because there's qualities I've learned as a coach that go far beyond just how I am with a client. It's how
Oh
I am
yeah,
in my other relationships.
yeah.
And it's really, so it's however it manifests is what I care about. Not that it manifests in one particular direction, like clients. It's just that like I said, I see it coming out in all my different relationships and different work environments and things like that. So I think again, it comes back to knowing what lights you up, knowing what you enjoy, and just keep going down that track.
There's boy, so just to follow that. That was well put. The gift is that we have just to explore. That's one of the things. There's so many opportunities we have in life to listen and tune into what's possible and take action on that. And the biggest reminder is that we can make missteps, we can make mistakes, and we can pick ourselves up. As you said earlier, like we can choose different careers. I've been that myself. It didn't stop me; it just gave me more experience.
Mhm.
And one of the things I've said a lot before with clients and in the work is that if you can be happy with where you are now, then everything that came before got you here. So ultimately, you need to make peace with everything that happened because it got you where you are now, good, bad, or indifferent. So recognizing that there's no bad things ultimately in life, there's lessons and opportunities and experiences that we can deal with as we choose. And that gift, same as you, although I don't like using the word coach myself, but being a guide and being a facilitator, whatever the term we want to use, I'm still trying to find the word label. But having that gift of being able to assist somebody else to be better at being themselves is the best thing ever. I mean, I was talking in a conversation a couple of days ago. If I won the lottery, I would still do this because this is my joy, and I would do it anyway. The money is not the focus.
Mhm.
Yes, it's a nice bit, but it's not the requirement. That being able to serve, to be inspired, to awaken, to uplift. That's my why. That's what makes me feel more alive than anything else.
Mhm. I know it's really great. I totally agree with you. Coach, it's like I don't know. I mean, it's got such a negative connotation, but for
Well,
want
there's so many. Yeah,
of a better word, I use that word. But it's interesting. I mean, I do believe in reincarnation. Thank God, because there's so many things that I would love to do in life and I've done a lot of different things that
right.
I haven't had the opportunity in this lifetime to do. And I was thinking the other day, I think I was watching the news and I was thinking, I'd love to be an international diplomat. I mean, I just thought I'd love that. I'd love to be. My mind's escaping me right now, but our diplomat right now that's in the Middle East. But I just certain things like that, or there's so many things that I can think of that I would so love to do and enjoy doing. And again, it's that what is in alignment with what makes you happy, what makes your heart sing. And sometimes we have these goals. So, I mean, I don't know if you've ever read James Hollis. He says the first half of our life is spent either conforming to our parents' wishes or rebelling against them. And it's really only when we actually get to our midlife, he calls it the midlife, where we really actually start to get in touch with what it is we want,
Yeah.
what our goals are. I mean, because whether you're conforming or rebelling, you're still being influenced by somebody else's wishes for you.
Yeah.
So that hitting that mid age point where you can really get in touch with what lights you up, what has you show up, like you say, regardless of whether you won the lottery or not, you're still going to show up.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful when we can get to that place. And if you can get to that place sooner in life rather than have to wait till midlife, that would even be better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I mentioned it last week, but I'm going to mention it again too. I was watching the Beckham documentary, and even though David Beckham doesn't come out and say it, but his face says so much. But I was thinking about him, and his father's wish had always been his father had always wished he could have played for Man United. That was
Right.
his dream. So David Beckham's life from the age of like 2 or 3 was football, was constantly, and the same thing. I read the Andre Agassi's memoir, same thing, tennis from 3 years old, or Tiger Woods. And sometimes, we look at these people that have achieved such heights in their career and they're unbelievable. But often it was the dream of their
Um,
parents. It's like
yeah.
Sir Richard. I mean, there's the Venus and the twins,
Serena.
Serena and Venus, exactly the same thing. Their father's dream, and and I'm sure that they are grateful in a way, but I'm sure there's a point in their life where they wonder what their dream would have been had
Right.
they been given that space to develop like a normal child and see what lit them up.
That is the challenge. And unfortunately, there are a lot of, not unfortunately, but there are a lot of successful athletes who really ultimately didn't want to focus on that as their goal. They just did it because they were told to, because their parents had that dream or their father had that dream. And to really own your own values, vision, goal, dreams that fill your heart, it's hard to go against that when it's that strong influence in your life, especially when you're very young, because you don't have any freedom to choose.
Mm-hmm.
But those of us who didn't have that pressure should have a head start, frankly, because we don't have that rule running inside of us. We can choose whatever's next that we want to do, which is really fun. So the key of this reminder is that whatever your goal is, it's worth satisfying, worth nurturing, it's worth exploring, and it's worth starting anytime you can, not when you're just 12 years old. There's
Mm-hmm.
always time to do it.
Exactly. It's never too late. I was thinking of a friend's daughter recently as well. We were talking about growing up on islands. I just came back from St. Thomas and we were talking about island life. And I was saying my friend's daughter grew up in Kauai, very small little Hawaiian island, and went to college, had a little shop for a few years. And then when she was 30, she sort of said, no, I want to be a doctor. And she decided to go to medical school at 30 and she became a doctor and went back to practice in Hawaii. And again, I mean, that's not even 30 is not old by any means, but
Oh,
just that it's never too late to really pursue a career that takes years of schooling to get to. If that is your passion and it does light you up, it's not hard work. It's something, it is a calling, it is going to draw you. And I often say too, when we have goals that are sort of so far out there, often they're goals that have been sort of implanted or we've come up with, and we often don't see what I call the golden threads right beneath us, that are these things that we can just pick up and explore and see what that feels like. I mean, that certainly happened for me. I came here on holiday in the early 80s and I was going back to school in Richmond to do psychology, and I happened to be wearing a jacket I'd made, and like within 2 weeks I was working in Hollywood as a costume, as
yeah.
an assistant at the time, but became a costume designer and stylist. And I even though I'd gone to fashion school, it had never really occurred to me, oh, Hollywood, you could work in Hollywood. It just never even occurred to me, but I just was here on holiday, and the universe just laid things out in front of me. And I was like, wow, I'm going to explore this for a while and see where we are. And now, even though, I'm not a psychologist, but we both went to USM and got our masters in spiritual psychology. And I definitely, in my work, use the combination of spirituality and psychology when I work with my clients. So it sort of came full circle. But there was those few years there where I was, into the creative arts and things like that before I came back to what had always been one of my passions growing up.
Yeah, it's funny. I just had a interview in the alumni group I'm part of for training I took that basically was doing my origin story, and I talked about how I had, as I said, I've had several careers, but those careers were based upon what was next, what was lined up. I was at school I was doing great in math and physics, so I ended up going into computers versus doing engineering, led me to computer programming. I would have never done that if I hadn't found a school that taught me that. So there's definitely gifts along the way. But in parallel to that, when I got to the States in 84, excuse me, I got to say it's 81, but when I started studying in 84, was the immersion and commitment to the personal development field for the last, since that point forward, so almost 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Has been what really is where my strength has been in my life, and ultimately where my work is, because the work I'm doing now is drawn from all of that experience, and all the work I did in the business world doesn't really fit what I'm doing now. There's bits and pieces of it do, but that thing is so shifting. And so the key thing, I'm going to say this again, I said earlier, is like, what are the things we've learned that are of value to us that may not have been our careers? It might have been the family dynamic you were in, or relationships you had, or the hobbies you had that become what becomes your vocation, your life skills, your joy. Because frankly, the more you can live in a place of beingness in what you're doing, even if it's not your job, it's something else separate from that. You're getting fulfilled, you're having fulfillment and feeling whole and feeling joyful, and you're making a difference. So definitely encourage you to keep looking that way, and ultimately you may discover what your mission is, what your purpose is, what reason for being is. Yeah. So it's worth doing the work.
Well, and you just, to put a note on that ending there is sometimes our mission in life is just to be absolutely in the moment, full of joy, fully alive. And that is enough. Again, we don't have to put that thing on us that it's got to look a certain way. As I said, some of our, I think some of the people that give the biggest gift in the world are my friend Marilee. And, not that she didn't do anything, she was definitely doing, but it was her being that has touched so many souls and so many people, and definitely was an inspiration to me just in her energy, how she showed up in life. So
absolutely.
That's it for me today.
One little quote to leave you with, because if you feel like you don't have time or you're running out of time, one of my favorite quotes from Richard Bach from Illusions is, if you want to know if your mission on earth is finished, if you're still alive, it isn't. Mm-hmm. So there's still got time.
Yeah. And actually, just to add a little bit more to that, I mean, we always hear about people that if it is about something, that if you do want to leave something a little more tangible, in your life, that there are people like, I think it's the Kentucky Fried Chicken guy. I mean, I think he was in his 70s or something. There's all these stories of people that didn't hit on what it was that they're well known for, or
until later in life.
Until much later in life. So, and especially now that we're living so much longer. I mean, I'm 64 right now, and I happen to come from a long line of women that live to over 100. So I figure I've still got another 40 years to go. So, I've got a long time to make my mark.
That's a good thing.
Exactly. But again, it's how I make my mark is going to be more important to me.
Yes, that's the key. Yeah.
Well, cool. Thank you, Barry. That was another great conversation. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you all next week.
See you there. You take care of yourselves, and definitely look at what you want to be about, what really moves you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye. We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well, so go ahead and enter your questions and comments relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.